My husband and I want to reclaim our marriage. What advice would you have for us?
So that's obviously an enormous question. I think a lot of people find themselves in that scenario. Um, and really every married couple finds themselves in that scenario in big ways and small ways constantly throughout the life of their marriage. We seek out experts in areas of our lives that are important to us. For some reason, we are hesitant to seek out experts in the area of marriage. I've seen the work Alan Hunt has done with these marriage events. I've personally given his book about marriage to I don't know how many people, and seen it had really powerful impacts in their lives. I think that reclaiming, in this case, your marriage is very much connected to reclaiming your love of learning. It's like, are you willing to learn new things? Are you willing to learn new things together? And then the other thing I would say is that sometimes people will say, you're not the person I married. No, actually, no. The person is not the person you married. Why? Because it's been a year or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 50 years, and we do change. And we change because of experiences, and we change because we learn new things. And in some ways we change for the better, in some ways we change for the worse. But sometimes we take a Polaroid of a person's life when we meet them, and we expect them to stay like that, or we assume that they've stayed like that. And people do change. What they're interested in changes, their opinions change, their preferences change, and their needs and the desires change. And so I would say acknowledge the change in your spouse and acknowledge how you have changed and talk about that, because spouse can't read your mind. You know, if your spouse asks you your opinion on something 20 years ago and you told him or her your opinion, unless you have updated your opinion with your spouse doesn't know that you hold exactly the opposite opinion now on whatever that issue is. And so, again, I think so much of it just comes down to communication. Most relationships will thrive or fail based on how much time people spend talking to each other, how often people spend talking to each other, how open and honest people are when they talk to each other. And there are two pieces of that. One is the external piece of that. The other is the internal piece of that. Like, if I don't know myself, I can't really honestly communicate with my wife, you know? And so to do the work, to spend the 10 minutes a day in prayer and reflection, to read great books, to engage experts so we can know ourselves in a new way, so that we can reveal ourselves in a new way. You know, in 7 Levels of Intimacy, I talk about the idea, okay, what is intimacy? It's mutual self-revelation. God teaches us intimacy because our God is not a distant, anonymous God, but he's a God who's, A, has revealed himself to us, and B, continues constantly to reveal himself to us. And by revealing himself to us, God gives us a model for relationship. He gives us a model of intimacy. And so intimacy is self-revelation, mutual self-revelation. It's me revealing myself to you and you revealing yourself to me. And the bottom line is that scares us to death, because our fundamental fear, our core fear, our common fear, universal fear of the human person is, if people really knew us, they wouldn't love us. And exactly the opposite is true, you know, and I think that's on full display in my most recent book. You know, I think I've never shared more about my own struggles. Do people read that book and love me less? I don't think so. Certainly the emails and the letters and that sort of thing doesn't reflect that. In fact, quite the opposite is true. And so it's that vulnerability that is an essential ingredient of all great relationships, but we struggle to go to that place. And so I would just encourage you to go to that place and keep going to that place.